Hey guys, welcome back to Sunday Sermon with Ola. Um, as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, I got new batteries for my Ola sign, so that's a plus. But my beard is picky as hell, so I apologize. It's been an interesting week. It's been one with personal challenges. Keep me in prayer. Setbacks, reasons to be down and sad. Um, on that note, also rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. But also, we live to fight another day, so it can't all be doom and gloom. I'm still alive, still in the land of the living, and I still have a dope podcast and community to come speak to. So I count this as a blessing as well. Um, I want to just get straight into it, into today's topic, just because I know there's going to be a lot to unpack, and I kind of want to stick to time requirements or um, restrictions. Let's say I um, I wanted to discuss this narrative about black men not protecting black women. Now, the way this came up was, I don't know if you know, but you may know, some of you may know, I write for Jason Lewis on an online show that he does called A Safe Space for the Culture. And this week, if you listen to this on Sunday, it would have come out today, which is Saturday for me. But yesterday, which is his episode, was about black men not protecting black women. And so what happens is he writes a script, and then he'll send it to me to punch it up, sort of script edit, and just to try and find where the funny is in it. So apologies, from calling me back. So yeah, basically he sent it to me, and I really struggled with writing it because something viscerally in me wanted to argue with the premise. It wanted to argue with the narrative, and I think that's what led me on a journey of further discovery. Um, I put a poll up on my story, on my Instagram story, and the question was, black men don't protect black women. Is this an important point or an unfair narrative? And important point one, but maybe we're like 3%. We're talking Brexit margins out here. So it was really tight, which means that this is clearly a contentious issue and something that deserves a bit more introspection. I also had quite a few very, very, very valuable conversations in the DMs with people who engaged with the topic, and it really gave me some new perspectives on it. So I kind of want to explore it now, but a big part of the work is going to be done in tonight's discussion on Instagram Live at 8 p.m. So I want you guys to tune in for that, because that's where the main part of the back and forth is going to happen. Here is just going to be me sort of offloading a lot of thoughts on it. I might reference some of the messages that I got, but we'll go into that in more detail in the live. So when I think about this, um, I think my first initial objection to it is, it seems like a very broad top line statement that doesn't ring true in my life. When I look deeper, I see why some people might say this, especially why some black women might say this. Um, again, there's still a part of me that doesn't just want to accept this blanket narrative, and wants to look at it a bit deeper. The reason why is that I think, first of all, we need to be very careful about the narratives we repeat. If somebody says black women are angry, there are so many offshoots to that discussion that make black women are angry a very unfair place to leave it as a narrative. Some black women will tell you, yes, I am angry, and I have very good reason to be. Some black women will tell you, not all of us are angry. Basically, what they want is more nuance and more of the idiosyncrasies of this discussion to be brought to light, rather than to just be labeled across the board as angry, right? So the same goes for black men don't protect black women. I think, as a narrative, it it speaks to that same need for like, I want some more nuance to this. There are many things that come to my mind when we talk about black men protecting black women. The first one, and just because it starts off as in history, and it starts off an understanding sometimes of the way systems are built. When I heard that, or when I was taught or learnt that on slave plantations, it was very important to engage not only in physical warfare but psychological warfare on slaves, that you had to break them mentally. I understood why some things are the way they are. And so when you hear that, slave masters would rape men in front of their wives and children just to show the wives and children that your protector can't save you, it makes me look at the dynamic today and go, all right, this is by design. In some cases. Obviously, this doesn't cover the spectrum, and this is what I've learned through exploring. But when we talk about the things that affect black women, I think there's an endemic and generational powerlessness in a lot of black men's mentalities as to what can be done. What can really be done. The second thing I want to say is, and this is one of the reasons why I think I understand why black women might say this, is that because of the fact that blackness is often defined by oppression, we have to look at how black women have been conditioned over time. And whether we're talking about something as obvious as a single parent home, or we're just talking about, how black women have to carry themselves in society, I don't think there's very much room for black women to be fragile, to be vulnerable, to be soft, to be delicate. You have to be tough, right? Black people have to be tough. And that works out okay for men, because then people go, oh yeah, this black guy's so tough. That's what he's supposed to be. But for black women, there's a visceral, rejection of it. Like, why is she so tough? Why is she always so angry and so blah, blah, blah. And then it kind of switched to, oh, she's so strong. And you'd have, white women on TV shows and movies saying things like, I'm a strong, independent black woman, to be ironic. And black women repeating it about themselves. I'm a strong, independent black woman. And I think when you see somebody as a strong, independent black woman, you don't see her as somebody in need of any kind of protecting. You're like, she's got it sorted. She's got herself covered. And this is a conversation I've had a couple of times, and I think I mentioned it earlier on in the pod. But I think black men sometimes need to be reminded that black women have vulnerabilities. It's a crazy thing to say. But it's not always only just to do with like who you're dating, who you're married to, blah, blah, blah. I think the day I realized my mum was a human being was mad to me. I was like, what? Wait, whoa, hold on a second. My mum like had a crush on somebody at one point. My mum feels lonely at times? What do you mean? My mum's genuinely hurt and scared about things. And I'm not talking about, a black cat or some kind of stereotypical, even though she is somewhat fearful of black cats. I'm not talking about that sort of like cartoon fear. I'm talking about like genuinely scared. To consider a Nigerian mum as a well-rounded human being is almost revolutionary. So, I think the lack of depth afforded to and shown by black women sometimes in their personas leads others to believe that they don't need protecting. In the same way, most people don't come to me and think I need cheering up. You're a comedian. I remember the one time I was in uni and I was walking around miserable and somebody said, oh, you're no fun like this, man. It's supposed to be making us laugh. And I was like, yo, but I'm a human being. I intentionally go out of my way to show complete depth to my character because I don't want you guys to ever think I'm just one of those clapping monkeys. You switch him on, he starts entertaining you. It's not like that. I'm a real human being. Like I said, this week hasn't been great. Like, it's not all upwards and, smiley and blah, blah, blah. So when we talk about protecting black women, I think it starts off by, first of all, seeing them as people who might need protecting. So, investigating that in sort of general terms of what first came to my head is kind of where we're at now. But having some conversations made me go a bit deeper into this thought. And before I get into that, last thing I want to say on narratives is that the thing about narratives is that you have to ask yourself, what is the point of your narrative? We don't get to meet everybody and we don't have the statistics on everything. But what we do have are narratives. Narratives are often built on anecdotal evidence. That means if I can find an example of it, then it's true of an entire sample. So if I find 5 stories of black men, spitting on black women, you can quite easily convince yourself that black men really be spitting on black women. That's 5 examples out of however many hundreds of millions there are, or billions there are of us in the world. That's how narratives work. If I paint the picture big enough and I show you enough examples, you believe it. The thing about it is that they also become self-fulfilling prophecies. People then find out narratives and lean into them. They live them out. So I have to ask myself, what's the point of this narrative? And I think part of it is a lack of direction, because whenever black people start getting together to fight against something always comes in between. And the easiest one is to turn a black man against a black woman, and now they start fighting each other. But there's many different versions of it. We always break off. It always comes into the differences between sexualities within us, differences between class. At one point, black people be like, I hate all these middle class black people. And, it's always good to find an enemy within. You see what I'm saying? So part of me is like skeptical of the narrative, and especially the timing of it. But also, I think there's an understanding that needs to come when you stop trying to take pleasure in always being right. I know it's gonna sound very weird, especially as a black man saying this, but it's tough. There's a time in your life you have to figure out, do I want to be right or do what's right? And the thing about the pleasure of being right is you take so much pleasure in pointing out someone else's fault because you're so right that you almost don't leave room for anything to get better. Because the whole motivation for you was proving how right you are rather than actually righting any wrongs. So for example, if I have a child and I say to the child, you are stupid. The child might be stupid. That makes me feel good because I was right and I diagnosed it and I let that child know. If I say to the child, you're not reaching your full potential, you're actually smart, you're presenting yourself in a way that isn't you, and I'd like you to live up to the potential you have within you. I'm also right, but it's not as satisfying in that sort of like, I want to let you know something way. But what it does do is allow room for redemption. And what it does do is it does speak to something good within that person. But you first of all have to see something good within that person. So I think if you say black men don't protect black women, I think you're falling into that trap sometimes of defining men by the worst of men. No one wants to be defined by the worst of their people. Who does? Black people, we know there are criminals amongst us, but do we want to be defined as criminals? No. So why would black men want to be defined by the worst of black men? What you can say is, I know there are brothers out there that do protect black women, and I want to say, I appreciate you. That is, you're still making the point that some people aren't, but you're not focusing on them. You're not giving them the spotlight. You're not projecting them on the entire group. You're speaking to what you actually want to see, which is, I think, is a subtle shift that can happen sometimes in our communication as we become a bit more refined and thoughtful with how we speak. But I understand it. It's a visceral, emotional, deep feeling response. When somebody says black men don't protect black women, they're not coming out of a comms meeting with, the joint chief of staffs and the person from the PR company and blah, blah, blah. They're saying how they feel. Which doesn't make it wrong. Doesn't make it right either. So we have to address it. Why do women feel that way? Now, this leads me to the conversations that I had. And the reason why I think this one was particularly poignant was because two sisters hit me up to have a discussion about this, and they were both from South Africa. And the reason why it was important to me was because they came at it from a completely different angle. When people say this, I think we assume that everybody's having almost a uniform experience. But speaking to these sisters in South Africa, I realized they're coming at it from a whole new angle, right? So the angle they were coming at it was the term GBV, gender-based violence. In South Africa, this is a huge problem. This is a huge problem in the sense that I think South Africa has one of the highest rape records in the world. And there are enough of these anecdotes for us to really be concerned, as well as statistics that show that this problem is, I don't think any amount is acceptable, but this is way beyond anything that we have seen. It's almost unprecedented. So what the conversation is that I'm asking, black men don't protect black women. Then they're saying, look at the amount of women getting raped and attacked. And basically, that's where the disconnect happens. I'm saying the evidence of black women being raped, I don't see how that relates to black men protecting black women. I see that as rapists are doing what they do. They're attacking women. In terms of black men protecting black women, for you to put that charge on me as a black man and say I don't protect black women, I would be like, hold on a second, what was I supposed to do? Was I supposed to follow you around? Was I supposed to have been there? Was I supposed to have magically shown up? Like, I don't understand how I was supposed to protect you. I don't see those guys as acting on behalf of me as a black man. I see them as criminals, rapists. And so let's deep dive a bit further into some of these narratives around rape. One of them is, we don't take rape seriously enough. They don't get prosecuted. And this is a real problem, don't get me wrong. But I will say that in states in America where there's a death penalty for murder, people still commit murders. Do you understand this? Where people know that everything is on the line if they kill somebody, they still kill people. You would think, like intuitively, you think, oh, maybe murder rate would go down to pretty much zero because no one wants to die. But people still kill people. So that means if men decided we were so intolerant of rapists that we started killing them, people would still be out here raping. All right, let's move on to another narrative. You need to check your friends. I think we need to address this one again. We need to address this presupposition that there's a group of good guys standing around and one of them is a rapist. And he's like, bros, I feel like I might get onto some raping later on today. And everyone else goes, I wouldn't do that, but do you, brother? No. If you have a circle of guys where one of them's bragging about a date rape, for example, and everyone's like cheering him on, the chances are they are all rapists. Birds of a feather are flocking together. They all think it's okay and they're probably all doing it. And so this idea that we're going to just have a conversation with rapists and they'll stop, they know what they're doing is wrong. They go to great lengths to hide it. It's not a matter of, there are some, I agree, some people do need education. I think if you've grown up in a terrible environment that has normalized it for you, sometimes the education can shake you up and go, hold on a second, this is not okay. But I do think the vast majority of people at this point know what they're doing is wrong. They go to great lengths to hide it, and then they go to court to pretend it never happened. There are definitely some that go to court like, oh, I thought it was okay. I thought she was into it and so on. Those ones are genuinely confused. But the ones that go there and be like, no, she gave consent when she didn't, those guys, they are criminals. They are doing what they do. Crime. If for me, I've never been in a circle of guys and somebody says anything rapey and I'm like, All right, cool. It's not me, but he's doing him. No, you wouldn't even feel bold to say that around some boys unless you felt like you were all of the same mindset. So this idea we're gonna have conversation means that somehow we need to get in community with guys who rape, and usually you're just not running in the same circles. So that's why sometimes I'm a bit skeptical with some of these narratives, because like, who are you trying to reach? You can't shame the shameless. So if you're like, oh, shame these rapists, blah blah blah, some of these guys are just doing what they do. They're out here. We can say, okay, cool, we're not going to embolden them any further. We're not going to give them a TV show to come on and talk about how much they love raping women or whatever it is. We're going to put a line somewhere for sure. But in terms of actually doing it and those real victims, how do we protect them? And you have to remember this as well. If 50 women get raped, it's very possible that it was one rapist. I know because you see 50 victims, you might think there must be so many men doing this. But the thing about rape and just how hard it is to prosecute and all of the other problems and the biases and the so on and so forth is that one guy can be very prolific, giving you the impression that a lot of guys are involved in this. So this topic is really, really, really tough when we talk about gender-based violence. We're also talking about these men, like the vast majority of these things happening in the home. If the father, the main protector of the child, is the one abusing the child, I mean, it's very easy just to, I think what happens is, it's tough, it hurts, and you need somebody to take it out on. And because the person you're upset with is almost shameless or is getting away with it and so on, you kind of need to go further out and you need to start pointing the finger. All right, it's your fault as well. You should have done something. And I think that accusation does more for like defensive conversation than it does to rise up. Now, here's the thing, and this is where one of the conversations really started getting deep, was that what are men expected to do? What are we supposed to do? Now, this sister that I was speaking to about this was a Christian. So she really started speaking to a lot of ideas of divine authority in men. This idea that men have a divine authority, but we don't recognize it. So we act as though we're powerless in situations, but really we're sleeping. We have real power. Now, I don't 100% claim to know what that looks like. There was something viscerally I connected with in what she was saying. There is something in men that I believe that they rise to the level of expectation. I think if you have low expectations of men, they meet you there. If you say men are dogs, men will be dogs. If you say men are kings, they rise up to be kings. I don't think people even realize the power of the statement of black men don't cheat. Like, I know it feels like just gaslighting because it's done in a lot of humorous ways online and so on. But if you repeat that long enough, do you know how many young boys are going to grow up hearing black men don't cheat and then live up to that statement? It's powerful what you say. It's powerful, these kind of narratives that you push. So when we talk about this divine authority in men, I'm like, what is it us men need to realize before we start coming up with these solutions? And I think something quite unexplainable by sociological standards and by academic intellectuals needs to happen. Something that they can't put their finger on. We could use words like ally, but ally is not what we mean. It's not what we mean. You don't want another person holding a placard next to you. What you actually want is to feel safe. And the dudes that hold placards next to you, they could be rapists themselves. They'll hold a placard. And the ones that aren't rapists, it doesn't change anything. It's not like the rapist is going, oh, this dude held up a sign. Okay, I'll stop raping now. So in terms of finding this solution that gives women that safety again and that feeling of being protected by the men of their society, I think we need to go back to some real basics and fundamentals. We need to start looking at what the real differences are between men and women. The psychologies, the makeup, the socializing. Look at the right way to do it, to bring out the best potential. You see men do amazing things on this earth with the right stimulus and the right environments. How do we recreate those environments for those circumstances? One sister did send me an organization set up by men who are doing a lot of work in sort of re-educating and trying to influence men. But one question I had to have was like, I don't think men's real power is influence in the same way that women speak of it. I think women have a power of influence over men that men don't have over other men. I feel like men respond to authority. Like if you're the coach and someone else is the player on the team needs to listen to the coach. If you're in the army and someone is ranked higher than you, or you're in the police force, someone's ranked higher than you need to listen to them. But on a peer-to-peer basis with men, unless I highly respect you and see you as somebody I want to emulate, you can't really tell me how to live my life. And this is the part of the problem, is that we're not understanding the men we're speaking to. I do believe that even men right now who have a criminal rapist mindset can be redeemed. Yes, I do believe that you can speak to the kid or the king in the man. You can speak to the god or the dog. But I do also think that first of all comes with understanding the nature of who you're speaking to. And that's an understanding we are lacking on and slacking on. But it's an understanding I'd like to build more of. And this is not one of those Sunday sermons where I have all the answers or I believe I've got this overarching point. This is one where I really just wanted to have a conversation because I know I'm still in the process of figuring it out. I want to know how I can positively affect my generations. It's all well and good me saying I protect black women because of my wife or my daughter or my mum. But it has to go further than that. Men have to become real architects of society. And I think we've become the tail rather than the head. I hope you guys will join me for the live discussion. And if you listen to this too late, just DM me your thoughts. Stay blessed, guys.